Headlines for today, October 21st, Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. So, Washington Post says, according to documents, Elon Musk, if Elon Musk buys Twitter, he plans to cut nearly 75% of staff.
Well done.
Twitter.
That's interesting. That might
You know
that might
why? You know why well done? Because if he say this, I think the internal Twitter will vote against him buying. Then he can just get away with it without anything.
exactly. Yeah, my
that,
thoughts exactly. Yeah.
that you're going to have now. It is an interesting point. I thought the same when I first read it, which is now you're going to have more than 75% of Twitter employees, perhaps 100% of Twitter employees are going to be telling Twitter, don't let him buy it, don't let him buy it, don't let him buy it, out of their own kind of selfish interests, right? And then Twitter might decide the entire company doesn't want you to buy it, but I don't know that matters because the board is going to be like, no, 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 he's offering a very um, reasonable offer, and we're going to take it. And ultimately, it's the board's decision, and they could tell the employees to go, stick it where the sun doesn't shine. And I imagine they probably will.
Yeah, it's not one of those employee-owned companies, right? I mean, certainly it's an incentive for the employees to hang out for all that, but it's the shareholders. It's not a multi-stakeholder world we live in.
Right. And so that's thought number one. Thought number two is he could lay off 75%. I mean, he could essentially tell them all of them that they're, other than the absolute critical ones, you're all laid off, and then we will be reaching out to the ones that we want to reconsider on an as needed basis, but they'll be rehired under new employment contracts and everything else. So
Yeah, it's like a deal with the devil. I don't think they understood what they were getting themselves into.
the Twitter employees, you mean?
Yeah. When I think the not only the employees, perhaps even some of the shareholders, I think now you're going to see a huge culture shift in Twitter, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess it's one of those CNN headlines.
Right. Well, I mean, part of the one of the key reasons of buying Twitter was to de-wokeify it from Elon's perspective, and then the question is, what percentage of people at Twitter, uh, would classify as being woke in that sense? And what if it is 75%? It wouldn't surprise me if that's an accurate estimate.
Like, does he have metadata, like the chess controversy story? Does he have like some sort of demographic statistical representation of the employees themselves? He's like, actually, 75% right here.
Well, I imagine I don't know, it's going to be wild to watch how this shakes out. It'll be one of the most unconventional acquisitions because it's being done for corporate cultural reasons, in essence, in large part, which is wild. Like somebody acquiring a substantial media company or platform for the purpose of, I guess private equity does this sometimes. Sometimes they buy a company and then gut it and then refill it with, uh, the, the the people that they think would be best to run it.
Cue Pretty Woman music. Where's Richard Gere when you need him?
Wild, wild times. Okay, so there's a follow up that Bloomberg says they have sources that the White House is weighing the idea that some of Elon Musk's ventures, including the Twitter deal and Starlink, um, that they should be subjected to national security reviews. Which, yeah, I guess it makes sense. And Starlink is significant enough on a global basis that the U.S. and the White House need to have their hands in those cookie jars because Russia and China, they have serious geopolitical potential consequences, both something like Twitter and certainly Starlink. So they're going to want to be able to have some kind of security reviews with both of those. And I think that kind of makes sense. I guess Elon has tweeted about this on this second issue. Somebody said it would be hysterical if the government stopped Elon from overpaying for Twitter. And Elon responded with a laughy face, 100%. As like the government could step in and say, no, you're not allowed to buy Twitter for national security reasons or whatever. Biden admin officials are discussing whether U.S. should subject some of Elon's ventures to national security reviews. Yep, that would be a wild twist in this. If the government says they don't want Elon owning Twitter, that would be hilarious at this point.
What would such a reason sound like?
Well, I read a tweet about, uh, you know, allowing Elon to acquire Twitter, let all this, deal take place, and then confiscating the entire, uh, back and forth communication to know who is funding, who's behind it, what are the security concerns, who are the main players, so on and so forth. So I'm not
Oh,
sure
so
whether
like
this
the investors
person.
backing Elon? Is that what you mean?
No, not backing Elon. Actually, they are trying to see if there are people supporting him and using his platform and his stardom or whatever for their own uh, political and other ventures and purposes. So I don't know. It was just a kind of a comical tweet, but I kind of thinking about this. That I think we, or America, or Biden administration, perhaps, is thinking what's behind all this. Once Twitter is obtained by Elon, and the way he's been tweeting lately, and Kanye West and others, kind of shaping up, taking a lot of space for election sentiment, uh, affecting the political scene. So, what's going on there? So, this person was suggesting to allow this deal to take place and then confiscate all the information and the communication to see, oh, who's talking to Elon, who's Elon talking to, and what's the entire um, scene behind this Twitter deal, which we don't know.
I think if it turns into WeChat, I think that's such an interesting twist because as Facebook is kind of plunging down uh, because of these privacy issues, I think people are willing to trade privacy nowadays for even not necessarily a subscription, but if there's commerce supporting or offsetting the cost of the platform itself, I like that model much more. So that could be pretty cool.
Okay, next up.
Tyler, can I add this?
Sure.
I think this information is more specific. It says an element of Musk 44 billion Twitter deal. It says it's the presence of foreign investors, and the group includes Saudi Arabian's investor Prince Al Walid by Tele and Binance, which is founded in Shanghai. So these are the names specific inferred.
Okay. Uh, a Twitter told staff that there haven't been plans for company-wide layoffs since it signed a deal with Elon Musk, and that it can't confirm of Elon's plans. Twitter, confronting reports that Elon aims to gut its workforce as part of its takeover, told staff that there aren't any plans for Twitter to do that, but we don't know what Elon plans to do. He does plan to do that, by the way. Um, and then they're all going to scream, and that would be amazing. So now you've got potentially the all of Twitter could scream loud enough simultaneously to scare the board into canceling the deal, and then comically, in some bizarre comedy version of this movie, the White House cancels the deal for fear that Elon is too friendly with Putin or Xi for some reason.
This is like almost like a Monty Python sketch, almost. It's like nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Bloomberg says they have
Uncle Sam to the rescue.
Bloomberg has sources that Twitter and Elon Musk are preparing for the buyout to be completed by October 28th. That's a week from today, next Friday. Thanks to breakthrough between both sides. So we will know next Friday. Oh, I think I just broke my monitor trying to. Okay, there we go. So next up, Forbes says, according to documents, a China-based ByteDance audit and risk control team planned to collect TikTok location data of specific U.S. citizens never employed by the company. So users, basically. So why is ByteDance team members in China planning to collect location data of specific U.S. citizens?
Is TikTok spying on us?
Physical, it says the project assigned to a Beijing-led team would have involved accessing location data from some U.S. users' devices without their knowledge or consent. The team behind the monitoring project is led by Beijing-based executive Song Yi, who reports to ByteDance co-founder and CEO. The team primarily conducts investigations into potential misconduct by current and former ByteDance employees, but in at least 2 cases, the team also planned to collect TikTok data about the location of a U.S. citizen who had never had an employment relationship. Materials show. It is unclear from the materials whether data about these Americans was actually collected. However, the plan was for Beijing based ByteDance team to obtain location data from U.S. users' devices. The material reviewed by Forbes indicates that ByteDance team was planning to use the location information to surveil individual American citizens, not to target ads or any of these other purposes. Forbes is not disclosing the nature of the purpose of the planned surveillance referenced in the material in order to protect sources. Because it would be too specific and it might reveal who the source is. That's good. TikTok did not answer questions about whether the team has specifically targeted any members of the U.S. government, activists, public figures, or journalists. I can't believe it. Guys, I'm starting to think TikTok might not have our best interests in mind. It's almost
What a
like
surprise.
it's almost like they're not a super helpful benefit to the West.
Well, I put my
But
voting videos up there and they didn't go viral. So I guess,
Uh-oh.
yeah,
well,
I guess that means TikTok isn't working for the United States.
You're not helping disinform anybody, so
you want to be under their radar, Dr. Franson, then you go viral.
Or you may have to start
democratic
some,
messages don't work in China-led
you need to
totalitarianism.
start some kind of destructive trend, destroying
Yeah,
their
you're
teams,
right.
then you'll get viral.
You know, you have
But
to say
telling,
good things about XJP, then you'll go viral.
yeah, but
Just
telling people to go vote just doesn't go viral.
Uh,
just mention Tiananmen Square when you do, and maybe it'll be a flag for something.
Evan tweeted.
China.
Oh no, Evan tweeted something about TikTok a few hours ago. It was a retweet by somebody named Alvin Fu, and
AKA Alvin the Chipmunk.
Alvin an ex-Googler. Uh, he's a venture partner at Chain Valley Capital. Anyway,
Where's your sense of humor?
I didn't hear the comment.
Oh, AKA Alvin the Chipmunk.
Oh no, different Alvin. And anyway, it's a video of a Middle Eastern looking guy who appears to be a politician who has a very British accent but is wearing an Arabic headpiece of some kind. I can't distinguish which territory his garb is from, but he speaks in a perfect kind of London accent, which he could those can both be true at the same time. He can wear a turban and be in London, obviously. So anyway, he listened to what he has to say.
Girls dancing. Boy country made TikTok.
He's sitting with a microphone in front of him like he's giving a Senate hearing. By the way, just in terms of what the fuller context. He's obviously speaking to a body of politicians of some kind. Here we go.
Made TikTok.
He says, what country made TikTok?
China. Do you know that China controls the algorithm of what you see? Do you know this? If you're in America and you open up TikTok, if you're in Britain and you open up TikTok, there is a specific algorithm to reach you that is not in China. If you're in China and you open up TikTok, what the Chinese government wants you to receive as youth, as people using TikTok, are people who are doing good things, achievements, youth making social enterprise, youth becoming successful in math competitions, youth becoming masters of karate, youth doing something with their life. And you are rewarded. That algorithm is that the Chinese government makes you see positive things for social development. Did you know here and in the United States, China, send you a different algorithm? Do you know what they send you? All the nonsense that you see. They want you to see girls dancing, boys and girls dancing with each other, pranks upon your parents, pranks upon people. How many pranks do you see? Yeah, I'm not saying it's not funny. Some of them are downright hilarious. But if you want to destroy a nation, destroy a generation, you make them in their mind be rewarded with the dopamine for thinking stupid things are good, thinking that this is what you're supposed to grow up doing. A large proportion of people grow up thinking that this is what life is about. But in China, they don't let their children think that. Next time you open up TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and you see this, understand that you are being played.
How is this an attack on a country low key? How come this is never talked about on a larger scale? This blows me away.
I'm just surprised it's the first time. I mean, we've discussed this. I mean, I've ranted on this multiple times every few weeks, but it's the first time I've seen someone else rant about it, and I'm somewhat pleased to see somebody who appears to be a politician. I would love to know who this is, who's in this video, and who shares. I agree with everything that he says, but I really want to know who he is and what body he's speaking to.
This is pretty amazing, I think, because of one kind of detail about the statistics of children. And this should, I think, frighten and sober up a lot of people. When we poll children in the U.S. and you ask them, hey, what do you want to be? They say YouTube or TikTok or this social media network, that one. But when you ask
Tyler.
kids in China the same question, they want to become astronauts, scientists, engineers. This might be part of the reason why, because their social media landscape looks much different than the one that we're presented, even on the same platform.
Tyler, there is someone in the audience who claimed to have 2.6 million. I guess his followers on TikTok and manage hide about 70 viral TikTokers from 10 countries. I have invited him on stage. I'm not sure whether he wants to. Teddy, you want to speak up?
Hey, what's up, Cheryl? Happy to be here. Yeah, I mean, I have four accounts. My first one has 1.6 million, but yeah, I have about 2.6. Been doing it since late 2019. I love this topic, you know. I'm currently in Taiwan, so you know, I have family in China, so I have both the Chinese version and the US version, or the global version. And I can say that, yeah, I think it's partially correct, you know, in terms of the content types you get. You get longer, more educational videos in the Chinese version. We're seeing more of that post-COVID in the global version, more education in the global version. I guess I just had a few questions that I wanted to ask, you know, regarding like safety. Like, how could the data that the Chinese government has access to affect um, any potential conflict with the US, do you guys think?
Hmm. Good question.
Is
It's
that
loyalty.
Anthony?
CCP loyalty is part of the cultural programming.
How could can you ask that question again, Teddy?
Yeah, sure. How could the privacy issue regarding like the Chinese government having access to, you know, all the data that they've collected through TikTok affect the outcome of a potential conflict between China and the US?
I don't know that it could. That's a deep question.
It depends on how the algorithm
Well,
displays information and steers a potential opinion. Right before an
well,
election, perhaps it could fool with democracy. Have we not seen that since, I don't
here's
know,
here's
6 years ago?
here's a
Are
few.
you only talking about the algorithm, Teddy? Good morning, everyone.
Yeah,
So, are you
one
only
one
focused on that?
one scenario that
Thank you.
comes to
Let's
mind.
let Tyler respond.
He
Tyler.
said data generally. So potentially, um, the owner of the platform could have access to. And there's actually quite a lot of data. So, for example, they could know who on their platform is in the U.S. military potentially, because geographically they're on military bases or they spend a lot of time on military bases. And then they know the content that they're watching, and they might know which people in the military are pro CCP based on the content that they're liking or sharing or what have you. And then those people could be approached as potential uh, agents or spies, for example, as one scenario that could be useful in a conflict between.
Or trainers like European retired fighter jet pilots were employed by
Oh,
China.
right. So there was an article last 48 hours ago that China has employed uh, the UK's former Royal Air Force Navy pilots or Air Force pilots to train CCP members. This is like from Reuters yesterday. And they could do the same in the US is find high ranking military personnel who would be willing to come over and be paid to reveal all kinds of interesting things about how the US trains militaristically and everything else, like they seemingly are doing in the UK at the moment. And perhaps that program ostensibly might have been benefited from some of the TikTok data that they had of who they ended up um, asking to come over to provide some of that information.
There's also the biometric data that is being collected, face prints and voice prints from the US users. So that's another thing as well, being
They,
able to replicate
they,
expression and behavior.
right. There's also the possibility that they could, and it's not a possibility, it's a very real possibility, that they could preemptively see movements of military moving towards Taiwan or being stationed in Taiwan, or and that could give them a heads up, that some things, there's kind of mobilizations of sorts towards. And there was an article a couple years ago, I recall, and somebody can find it, that there were U.S. military personnel were told they had to delete TikTok because there's military personnel who work at military bases that are not known by the public to be military bases. They're kind of covert, small scale military bases that are not in databases known to anyone outside of the U.S. military apparatus, and they didn't want people knowing that those stations exist. Um, and
There's,
so those could be the first examples. If I spend a couple days thinking about it, I imagine I would drum up some really hair-raising potential dystopian kind of
Can I
uses of
make a
data.
comment?
I
But
think for anybody
So,
that's
Tyler,
interested,
can I
there's a
make it?
good book about the whole Cambridge Analytica. I think that's a small, that's older now, but what Cambridge Analytica did is a good example of what can be done with that data. They only had a sample of data that they got through researchers off of Facebook. Imagine if Facebook, the platform, decided what Cambridge Analytica was able to do. They had so much more information, and they drove elections. They people are so malleable that they are able to basically get people to vote the way they want.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
political support. I would
right.
suspect that probably the top of the pyramid is just political support for Taiwan here in the States is probably the biggest trigger that they have with regards to what their capabilities are. All of the specific use cases on military are really great as well. How we've seen some of the apps used in what is it, like Tinder in the Ukrainian and Russia
Oh, right.
conflict, right? But I think that the strategy is to basically get TikTok as the number one social media engagement platform, and then use it to influence political support as and if and when they actually start something with
Yeah,
Taiwan.
I had honestly never imagined TikTok a use case where China is using it for a military advantage. That thought had never occurred to me. So I don't
Well,
have
yeah,
any.
but Tyler, there was concern with the soldiers, not just about their location, but TikTok, by having it on your phone, it could leave a piece of software or whatever, malware, whatever you want to call it, that could pick up information from your other apps, like even an email, and then it gets information. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of the things I've noticed, it obviously knows I listen to the All In podcast, okay, which I listen to on Spotify, okay. But all of a sudden, because since I've been listening to All In, I've been starting to use TikTok. Now I get snippets from the All In. I got one this morning that hasn't even aired on Spotify yet. Probably is going to air later today, or it's going to air on Saturday, or whenever your friends drop it, but it's one I haven't seen, and this is obviously something new. So
Yeah, they usually drop on Friday. They're recorded on Thursday.
well, that's what I'm saying. But like, I went to Spotify, Francine, to see, because once I saw it on TikTok, my TikTok, because there was a snippet from David Sachs, you know, and
On-
and and I went to Spotify to see the whole episode because he got cut off, and it's not there yet. So it hasn't dropped on Spotify yet, but somehow they have an earlier version than I could even see on Spotify.
Do they have
Oh, they
access to our
may
microphones?
have the recording, outtakes from the recording process.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They could be sponsored by TikTok to promote that early release. This is all part of a strategy and campaigning as well. So there's no telling. Maybe Teddy has a follow up question to. Have we answered maybe some of the ways data
Well,
could
one
be
other.
Hey,
used?
thanks, David. Yeah, so I mean, the follow-up question is, hypothetically, let's say, today, we kicked TikTok completely out of the USA. What would change? Like, what else would, the US have to kick out from China to affect change in the privacy safety? Is that enough? Is it too late? Because TikTok, it's integrated with Apple, Google, Facebook, and Meta. Um, and there's more apps that we use from China also today, every day. So what,
Including
what
this one, by the way, just so you should know, this underlying software of this application on Clubhouse is from China.
Um, that was changed, right? Isn't it changing? They are building it from ground up.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
they've rebuilt it.
They have rebuilt it entirely.
it's not
That's
on Al
why
Gore or whatever anymore.
no. That's why they moved to houses, and that's the one of the reasons they are building the app from bottom up again, and they have removed that. Whatever that was. So I wanted to share a little bit about how TikTok. We have discussed this in the past in this room. I'm really concerned about how TikTok algorithm affect the mind of children, swaying their ideas and destroying their, mindset in a way that is also affecting our fabric of democracy, the political system. And in itself, the wars can't, it doesn't have to be the war of power. You can use soft power and these kind of mind bending ideology to destroy the fabric of your society, and that's what you witness when TikTok trends take place. The young generation. disrespecting authority or their teachers or their parents, and even killing each other, even destroying, property, not
Aaron.
voting and stuff. So, yes, Cheryl? Yes, Cheryl?
Yeah, you think this behavior precedes TikTok or only happens after TikTok came into the life of young Americans?
Can I complete my thought first, or?
Yeah, so you got my question, right? So you can answer this after that.
Instagram does the same thing, just so you know.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
all social media based, algorithm can do that, but based on the usage, the account information can be relayed to Chinese agencies. Location based information can be relayed, and if children are living on an army base, for example, and there is mobilization and they are moving to another location, that mass movement can be tracked. There are so many other things that the data information can provide, depending how you want to use that data. So I'm not sure whether Instagram and Facebook are also sharing all this data information with China. TikTok for sure is, and TikTok is not based in United States. So anyway, not only the war itself, like the physical war, I mean to say that the mental aspect of destroying the youth that is coming up in future,
Which is the more important part.
that's the more important part, because that's going to destroy the democracy and even the system of democracy, which is the threat. That's the problem here.
But what, I want to
Hey,
get
I'm
back.
gonna play. Go ahead, Tyler. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He asked a
How do
question.
we fix that, though, Aaron? I am 100% in agreement with you, and I think that has happened already. And I think it happens from all the social media apps. And I want to know, though, how we get that genie back in the bottle.
Go back to Tyler. Tyler wants to finish asking
I want to
Teddy's
go.
question.
I want to go in order. Teddy had asked a question that we have yet to address. So I think Teddy asked, "What else?" Is again a very impressively deep question here. What else would, if TikTok, the scenario that he imagines is if TikTok were to be banned, what else would need to happen for security purposes? And Teddy, I wanted just a point of clarification. Are you inquiring about personal safety or national safety and security?
Yeah, that's usually the biggest topic when it comes to having TikTok exist in the US. Like what's brought up most is like they have data on you. And then the counter argument is, well, so does Facebook and so does YouTube and what have you. But what's the difference then between the US government having our data versus the Chinese government having? I think we answered that and touched that. But like what else would happen to like, okay, it's like Chinese still have our data even if we ban TikTok today, right? Or no? And if not, what further steps do we have to take if they still do have that data and can mine more data as easily, if
I
TikTok
see.
were here or not here, right? Like what other steps would have to be taken in order to protect the privacy of US citizens?
So
Well, that's what the major 5G. I'm not sure to what degree you're privy on the U.S. kind of global campaign to convince all of its allies to not use Huawei 5G, where
Mm-hmm.
India most recently last week decided they were going to go with Nokia, despite the fact that it would be far cheaper to go with Huawei 5G. And the U.S. is putting considerable pressure on all of its allies internationally to not use Huawei 5G, precisely for this reason that you're asking, because that's a harder one to remove because it's hardware and takes time to install and takes even more time and more cost to remove. Where banning TikTok, there's fundamentally no real cost involved in removing that, but removing a 5G hardware provider, because nation states are all installing 5G, and they have all had to grapple with which 5G hardware system they want to go with, and the U.S. is saying if you can take the cheaper Chinese Huawei system, but that's going to be you're opening a Pandora's box of security issues. Which there
so
was some Dutch labs that sort of confirmed that notion that Huawei 5G antennas were transmitting data back to Beijing in some instances. You were saying, David?
I think the threat is if you think TikTok is bad now, imagine what they'll do when they control the cell towers. Imagine what happens when they have a little bit more control than what they have now. But that's not that much more than the capabilities that the U.S. has. You know, famously, their a National Reconnaissance Office satellite has an octopus hugging the world, saying nothing is beyond our reach.
I
Tom.
have that sticker on my laptop, which is ironic.
Hell yeah, hell yeah!
Yeah. So
Shout
the
out to the deep state, yo.
right. So the reality of it is, I mean, go if you really want to go way back 2010, I did a whole thing on this. You know, the Robin Sage experiment. It outlined the dangers of social media, and it's literally 20x right now. So I want you to stop and think about that and why I say that. The reason why I say that is now everything is voice activated. Okay. So Facebook has Messenger, it has WhatsApp. So it does listen because that's how it targets its ads, because then it does the data sharing agreement between lines of business. TikTok also has the same thing. So the real national security threat is one on the geolocation of, whoever it is in the family. So if it's on potential people, and where they go. It's if you think because the app is closed, you're not being tracked, you're crazy. Now, another thing I've tested is when you open up TikTok on your phone, it scans your whole network. So it's literally connecting to other devices on your network, meaning it can connect to your TV. Your TV also has mics and everything else to listen to you because guess what? You tell it to change the channel. So it's like legalized spying. So when you look at the terms and conditions, and I think Jennifer Sanders went over this thoroughly, and that's what you have to worry about. Scenarios like that. If you open up TikTok or Instagram or whatever, the first thing you're going to do is it's scanning the network for other devices connected. Okay, and that's where they look at the national security threat. I mean, yes, and then you can also say they sell the data, and if you've looked at what called POL, pattern of life, all that data being sold is all aggregated with everything else, and that pattern of life helps make you a much bigger target.
Tom, so just real specifically, on your iPhone, when an app asks for access via Bluetooth to see your local network, if you say no to that, does it still have some level of accessing off phone into your network? And I have a follow up question too.
Yeah, it's not doing it from Bluetooth. It's doing it from Wi-Fi because most people connect through Wi-Fi. The Bluetooth also does it too. So what are you going to do? Disable it? Most people at some point in time they're going to enable it because guess what? They do it for hands-free driving while they're in their car. And how many times have you forgotten to turn the Bluetooth off after that?
So my follow up question is: Vizio was busted a number of years ago because when quote unquote smart TVs kind of got past 40 inches or what have you, they started to pop a camera on it. And I do recall that Vizio that this kind of issue was happening with regards to just having the camera on and things like that. And that's another reason why you don't want to activate the smartphone features inside a TV. You want some level of control over your Netflix access and stuff like that. But is that something that still is a problem, that you just having the app? Like right now, one of my concerns is if I say don't open up the mic, the app can certainly do it. It could just listen in if it's designed to
Oh,
do
there is
that. Is that
a
Well,
switch on one of the Sony TVs on Linus Tech Tips. They actually went over it and on Tech Linked as well, I think. So some TVs now are having like a physical switch that breaks the circuit of the microphone connection or the camera connection. So that's kind of cool. Finally.
right. And then you also have to remember, any Android exploit that comes out, odds are it's in your TV as well, because the underlying connections are usually through an Android and it's always through a Google store. So those people that go out and connect it to their profiles, you know, that's just that much more data. I don't care which government, that's just all out there. So a new Android exploit comes out, you don't update your TV, guess what? Your TV is exploitable as well.
Your TV now works for the CCP.
So,
Well,
in terms of solution, I
yeah,
think, sorry, Tyler.
okay, go ahead. But it's just a valid point that it's you could see back was it Teddy? Hi Teddy. That the well, by the way, the next there's two. I have. We're reading through the big tech headlines. We've only covered three of them. Just real fast, and I'll get right back to you, Aaron. YouTube announces they're raising the price of YouTube Premium. Who cares? Next, MailChimp CEO stepped down 2 months ago after sending an email saying that staff announcing their pronouns at meetings does more harm than good. We can debate that one. But the next one is the interesting one. Bloomberg says they have sources that the U.S. is exploring the possibility of new export controls that would limit China's access to quantum computing technology and AI software. And you guys will remember the guy Noah who writes the tech Noah Smith, who writes the No Opinion blog, who last week wrote a piece nearly identical to what I and others have been ranting about here in Tech News for about a year about what's going to happen and what is now happening, which is that headline is exactly what's happening. Is the U.S. is working diligently to curtail China's ability to advance technologically, particularly with regard to semiconductors, AI, and quantum computing. And Bloomberg says they have sources that now confirm this. And then Noah Smith tweets about that article. Wow, they're moving really fast. For a government, they are. The speed at which the Biden administration is moving on this is about as fast as a government can ever do anything. That's how impressively fast Biden is addressing this. It's 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 the government equivalence of a red alert, all hands on deck, full steam, no holds barred, you know, um, effort with regard to restricting China's ability to advance technologically on these issues. And
So Tyler, here's the question on that one, and this is where it gets tricky because back when I was doing a Robin Sage stuff, I was watching DST Global, and I was also watching Tencent. So what a lot of people don't realize is, guess what? Those guys that put money in your company have access to your data. Everyone's like, "Oh, who's DST Global? Oh, it's this nice guy from San Francisco." No, DST Global was Yuri Milner, funded by Elisha Uzmanov. And if you look at Uzmanov, he's been all over the news with this whole Russian stuff. Okay, and then you turn around and you look at Tencent, everyone's like, oh, it's a Chinese investment firm. No, it's the CCP. It's just like in QTEL, and QTEL is the venture capital firm for the CIA. So you have to be a little bit more proactive when you start looking at this stuff and who has control to what, because those investors have access to the data.
Cue the Bond music. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, did you see he got his little awards just like James Bond, Daniel Craig?
So, getting back to Tyler's point about how fast this administration is moving, I would just beg anybody to look into what this administration has been doing. There's a lot of successes. This one is a very pointed one that we cover in this room. But I just wanted to get some people to understand with midterms. If you're still kind of on the fence or whatever, please look into some of the articles to have a really well informed opinion to do your vote at the
I
midterms.
mean, it's doing something when it's actually executed. That's the other thing you have to look at, David. All right, everybody can throw all this stuff out until it's actually executed. That says, okay, this administration did something.
Tom,
Yeah,
we have a prior administration that did basically one thing in terms of a tax cut. There was a couple other things, and honestly, giving props to our former president with regards to finally raising the alarm on the CCP. He doesn't get enough support on that specific policy point.
but
He
if
fumbled the ball a little bit on how to execute it, but it was kind of after a generation plus of exporting the middle class and things like that. So
so
just
check
wanted.
this out. The
yeah,
article
but
that we're talking about at Bloomberg, I just pinned to the top of the room. I just want how Bloomberg, if you click on it, you'll see exactly what I'm about to describe. There's the title, which is at the top of the room. U.S. eyes expanding China tech ban to quantum computing and AI. Then there's the two bullet points under the title. Let me read them to you. Bullet point number 1, early discussions follow restrictions on semiconductors, which we've been reading about nearly daily for the past several months. Bullet point number 2, U.S. seeking to stifle China's military surveillance capabilities. So here we've now come full circle back to Teddy's question about China and surveillance, and this whole conversation that kickstarted this was TikTok as a surveillance tool, and U.S. seeking to stifle the purpose. I mean, there's actions, and then there's motives. And what is the motive of these actions? The headline is the action that the U.S. is going to ban the quantum computing and the AI, China's ability to advance that. And then the motive is why. And the motive is to stifle China's military and surveillance capabilities.
And part of that is the psyops, which is how the West, the public support is a very big issue with regards to success in any kind of military conflict. So the psyops is on the same is the third leg on the stool.
Yeah, it's
And
called the fifth domain, and that's kind of where it operates out of. And if you look at what falls into the fifth domain of warfare, it's the media, it's social media, it's all of that. Now, the biggest problem that we have, okay, and I put this on pretty much all the little shortened content, okay, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, it's shortened people's time span and attention. So you can publish anything and manipulate anybody in a shorter amount of time. Okay. And I think that's really the biggest problem that we have. I mean, how I can't, I've literally had customers ask me, can you teach security in short form, like within 2 minutes, 2 minute videos? And I'm like, wow, is this what this world has become? It's become TikTok for freaking security.
90 seconds. 2 minutes is too long. 90 seconds.
I'll do the 7 second one and just say you're fucked. You click the link to
YouTube
the phone.
Shorts. 1 minute.
On
1 minute.
TikTok, you only have 30 seconds. Okay.
Switch off your computer, switch off all your device, just go analog.
Yeah. Go to the
Go
island.
out,
Go
turn off
analog.
your phones,
Fish
and
are
go out
all food.
and enjoy people. That's it. Great, great advice.
Yeah.
It's like a hacking intro video, and you're like, wow, the guy's logging into his phone. And then as soon as he hits enter, system's already compromised as soon as he logs in. So that could be a funny way to do it as kind of a comical thing. But I think there is a certain level of lack of literacy when it comes to cyber. In the same way that there was a lack of literacy with how to do stuff on the internet in the early 2000s, and then all of a sudden everybody knew how to do social media. I think the same kind of requirement has to occur right now. We need to move up the literacy level of all of these things that were edge topics or, quote unquote psyops. Well, I think it's just competition, culture,
Hey,
and
I
Well,
civilization.
can
I
I ask
wanted.
Tyler a question? This is Teddy. Just one last question about this
sure,
TikTok thing.
go ahead,
Um,
Teddy.
there was a recent Joe Rogan interview with Mark Zuckerberg. I'm sure some of you heard the news where Mark Zuckerberg publicly admitted that the FBI came to him and Facebook, and then they purposefully suppressed parts of the Hunter Biden story to change the narrative before the election.
Yeah,
How is that different from China, right?
yep.
Affecting U.S. elections
America does
when
it better. America number one.
No, so
It's
Teddy,
China
you
learns it
actually,
from the
so Teddy,
US.
I'll answer that for you, and I understand the analogy, and it's a good analogy. First of all, I think Zuckerberg is now sorry that he did that, but his point was a lot of times, like Facebook, for example, they're under pressure about this whole misinformation thing and content moderation. Zuckerberg's original position historically has been he didn't want to moderate anything, and everything should just be a free flow through the pipe, and that became a problem. So now he's moved off that, and he's acknowledged they're going to have to do some sort of moderation. So his actual answer on that was just the fact that they didn't have enough other sources to verify, because other outlets, for example, were casting doubt on it, and so they decided, and he said they didn't really suppress it like 100%. He said they suppressed it like your like where like the order that you would see it, like how fast you would see it, or whether you would see it at all. But it wasn't like suppressed, like you couldn't see it. It was just a question where it ranked in the hierarchy. But he acknowledges that it was a mistake. But really, it goes to your real question, by the way. if we could throw TikTok out, I'm not really sure we can because I think it's so popular now. It would be like banning Hostess Twinkies. I think the American people would revolt. But leaving that issue aside, no. The
No,
issue
I
is
think
this.
Twitter could take over. Boom,
No,
Elon's
no,
on the
no.
scene, takes over. He's like, TikTok ain't shit. Here's the new Twitter. Does a bunch of meme videos.
We can talk about that later because apparently there was a new news story this morning that the United States government may have some security concerns about Elon buying Twitter. But we'll leave that for a second. The in the history of war, if you go back to World War II, the American companies, and even and after World War II, American companies typically cooperate with the American government when the United States is at conflict with a foreign adversary. So I think there's an assumption that Google and YouTube and whatever and Facebook would be cooperative and not hostile to the United States if there was foreign hostilities. Obviously, that would not be the case with TikTok, and I think that's the best answer to your question about what the difference is. Having said that, some of these tech companies don't view themselves. I mean, Apple is a good example. Okay, they don't view themselves with the same solidarity with the American government that maybe General Motors and Chrysler did, 80 years ago. And so I think that there might be a distinction there, but that is probably the best answer to your
Teddy,
question. I hope.
Hey,
Teddy, was that who was the source? I think we've all heard about that Hunter Biden suppression thing, but was that really a credible source, or is that fake news? Like, I'm asking it seriously. Like, was it reported by the New York Times or some
The New
Washington
York Times
Post?
came out and admitted that they actually had suppressed it. Yes, the New York Times basically did um a mea culpa on that. That they, because the New York Post reported it, and I think the only reporting was in the New York Post, and that may have been one of the concerns that Facebook had. Okay, but later the New York Times admitted that they had also suppressed it. They've admitted it.
Yeah, a bunch of them have. Even if you go back as far as the SolarWinds stuff, I literally had from a reach perspective, like say LinkedIn and Instagram. LinkedIn was it was usually at the time I had posted, it was usually about 12,000 views per post, and I had posted screenshots of the actual SolarWinds being used in admin ports open to the internet, to Dominion voting. You know how many views I had on that? 4.
Me and these three other guys loved it.
Okay, and that's the reality of it. I mean, if you think it's not, everyone's like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" So then I would send them screenshots, and they'd be like, "Oh shit!" But that's the reality of it. I mean, in the way you can't say it's the way the algorithm works because it's literally going to work the same way as any XDR security platform works. Somebody's going to go in and look at it, and they're going to have a ranking because that's how they do the training module for the AI.
So there is a way to tame the misinformation. There's a super whatever that can be laid on the algorithm to tame the misinformation.
So you're saying I was publishing misinformation, David?
If you, I'll back channel you on my opinion.
No, because this was actual research, including the screenshots of it.
So you're saying that there's screenshots, and
If you
I'm
want, I'll gladly send them to you.
I'm in a bit of a commute. But did you say that the voting machines were hacked?
The SolarWinds connection to the admin portal of Dominion. Oh, but you don't talk about Dominion voting being owned by China either, do you?
Oh, are we questioning our election results now here?
No, I'm questioning. I'm questioning anything China has their freaking hands on.
I would like to say, just to let y'all know too, because I've been trying to talk, but I keep just getting talked over and trying to be polite here. So there's this whole thing about China, 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 China. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be cause for alarm when it comes to our data, but it's not just China being intrusive. There are other countries doing this. Remember, like how Apple was with their phone when the federal government went after them because they wanted access to the phone, and then they were able to, but they said no. They pushed back, saying no. But what country came back with snooping software that cracked their that cracked their security on their phone?
Not a country, a company.
And a company that was in a certain country that's there. I mean, it's
Is
the
that
same thing.
Israel?
I mean, and then also too, there was a question about the
The
geolocation for the
company.
military. That There was issues about geolocation with the military long before TikTok. There are fitness tracking apps that people use, like the Nike app. Nowadays the Apple. There was the off of. There's so many apps tracking you, and then also too, people are forgetting a lot of these apps are built on open source code that's created, and you don't know exactly where that's come from or how it's used, and a lot of times no one goes back to clean up that code because they just take it, use it, make whatever money, and that's it. So there's TikTok is just like Facebook a few years ago when we started, well, when Tyler started this space. Facebook was the eye that was at the center of attention, and now it's TikTok. But it's not just them, and you need to have a discerning eye when it comes to your data. If you want to be able to live in this inoperable world that we're growing here in the US, where your phone is connected to your TV and your house is connected to your car, and all it's data being collected constantly about you. Either you're going to want privacy, or you're going to want to live in a world of convenience. And you can't have it both ways until we get to a point where we are the owners of our data. And if we keep giving it away for free because we want to, you know, connect with our family, or we want to upload pictures, or we want to do funny videos, or even do training stuff, you got to see what you want to, you got to pay to play. Either you're going to pay monetarily with money, or you're going to pay with your data. That's all to it. And when it comes to with the kids, because I've heard people bring up kids, there is a bit of parenting involved. I'm a parent of two sons. They're on social media, but you know, also too, they're not going around pranking. They're not going around just doing dumb stuff or preaching the gospel of what anyone says on a social media platform. They have a discerning eye. I taught them critical thinking. I'm not saying everyone has those tools as a parent, but people also need to start parenting when you bring kids into it. That's period. And some of y'all have seen my son on here, Brandon.
Al, I think the problem, I don't think anybody here would argue with you. I think it's the other malleable people that you are not going to think that way. That's the problem. These are the people that were manipulated by Cambridge Analytica that will be manipulated by whatever media Facebook is, whatever they're pushing
I
or TikTok is pushing. So that's the issue, not
So how do you
us.
wake them up then? Because we cannot use technology to solve every problem. So how
Or
do you fix that problem of the people not doing what they need to do to protect themselves? Because I work in
Regulation.
field as
so, in
well.
my
But
opinion,
but they, but
that's
the
what I
thing
was
is, they don't
trying to
want
bring
regulation.
up
So what do you do when they don't
earlier.
want regulation?
We can
Elle,
identify.
have you finished?
Kind of, sort of, because I was trying to answer David's question.
Yeah, you continue first. Finish first.
No, I was saying so people do not want government because they want smaller government. They don't want regulation. But also people, they want to be on the internet, they want to do this, but then they don't want to have their freedom of speech dampered, which also too people forget freedom of speech is, for the government. Government cannot damper what you say. So you have to pick your poison. And what do we do about making smarter people? Like, what do you do? Because
What,
regulation
what,
isn't
what
going
do
to
you
work.
say to your boys when they can't get what they want? You tell them no.
Exactly.
No, well, so let's answer that question. If someone has an unreasonable ask, they want to be able to use unfettered access to the internet, and they have shitty security protocols, we should tell them no. And who's the them? Maybe it's the platform. And at Jonathan Rawls, we should design government and these systems for the least among us, not the people that have made it past the filter, over all the hurdles, to have critical thinking skills. Because we've already talked about how top 1% or 5%, whatever you want to call this room, this is not the average. And average is lower, way lower than you think. So don't we need to have some, if it's not design and have regulation, at least have, like Tyler was mentioning, the domicile of the people that are doing all these things under your jurisdiction. And I would say ByteDance is not.
And L, regarding regulation, I absolutely wouldn't word it as you did that people don't want regulation. There's segments, right? And I would argue that there's a larger segment, even America, that appreciate regulation when it's applied, right? So that's a whole different room and a deeper conversation. But there's a very loud minority that are still, perpetrating Reagan's lie that government is always a problem. It's not absolutely not always a problem, but the devil's in the details.
Okay.
And by the way, paying for the services doesn't guarantee you privacy. Think about all the things that you do pay for, whether it's Netflix or YouTube Premium that just raised its prices. They're still collecting data, even though they're charging you. So I mean that's another issue.
Great point.
Well, we were talking about social media, but I do agree. Like everybody's collecting your data. Even when you go to the grocery store, every time you swipe that discount card to get that $5 off whatever thing, I mean, you're there's a digital profile on you. We talked about, I think last year or the year before, about how there was a company that was collecting all this data from your phones because there is a like a serial number or something that's attached to everyone, and they can follow you through all of that, so they can create a profile on like what your spending is. It's some type of like marketing ID. There's like all this stuff. So I mean, either we are going to wake the public up and say this is the world we live in, and you're going to have to take some type of onus on whatever it is.
Okay,
I don't think there's much waking to do. I mean, you guys are talking all this new stuff, but for those of us who've been paying for data and loved it years ago, I'll call it the Stone Age when I started in my career. We did Red Dot. We paid for Red Dot to track your eyes, track your shopping, see if you're left-handed or right-handed, how you operate in front of an aisle. Now then, there was some anonymity because we couldn't track it back to you, but you know what? People give up stuff free and people don't give it up free. We want regulation, we don't want regulation. I just think it's a wild world until something reaches a point where people snap. So,
Well, in my opinion, the small aspect of giving up a little bit of your freedom. For example, we do stop at the red light. We do not raise our hand and get in altercation because there are laws against it. Same way, digitally, any algorithm on any social media app which is deemed against the psychological health or have been proven by the terms of number of ER visits, by the number of the dollars spent in direct relation to the consumption of the algorithmic, model or data, should be subjected to national security in the way of psychological warfare. So, first of all, there is a need for identification of psychological warfare, the way the algorithms are being used, and then there is enough data to support the numbers are there to support that yes, in fact these algorithms are affecting the minds of our youth negatively, and this is a way of psychological warfare. And then because this is a threat to national security, steps need to be taken against such algorithm, stopping them from playing out here because it's kind of affecting our entire society. And if people are against regulation, I understand that, but at the same time, for the betterment of the entire nation, we do live under systems because, after all, that's how the society survives. And a small liberation, like giving up this control over this algorithm, which is not showing me something destructive, is not something that I'm going to. You know be sad about. And the children who are going to respond, just like the way they are responding negatively to negative trend, when they are shown positive trend, they respond positively to those trends. So this replacement will be better for them as well, for their mental health and for their future.
Okay. So we skipped over the one that I said we. I just want to give a chance for anyone who has a thought about the who cares about YouTube raising the price of YouTube Premium. MailChimp CEO stepping down after, 2 months ago after sending an email saying that staff announcing their pronouns in meetings does more harm than good. Okay. By the way, it speaks to the Elon's acquisition of Twitter. With his strong position about how Twitter's become overly woke, a little too woke. And I've been keeping we saw an article a few days ago about how Google's recent algorithm update. There's some right leaning publications claiming that Google is now that algorithm seems to be disproportionately working to softly shadow ban right leaning publications, which, if proven to be true, is quite concerning. And because of that, whether it's true or not, it certainly implanted a seed to be a little more aware. And I did what Google just did have a live event that they streamed globally, so much so that it was promoted on Google.com's main landing page a few hours ago, for me at least. And I believe it was called Google Next. And it asked me if I wanted to watch Google Cloud Next. As I recall, it was called Google Cloud Next. And the speakers at Google Cloud Next, and again, they're promoting this on Google.com, like the actual global landing page. It says, "Do you want to watch the Google Cloud Next live stream event that just happened?" I said, "Sure, I'll watch that. What is it?" And then here's the link to the event, and you'll notice that the speakers they list the most important speakers. There's a lot of speakers at the event, but the first speaker that comes out is the CEO of Google Cloud. The next is the CEO of Google and Alphabet, Sundar Pichai. And then the third speaker out of many is the Chief Diversity Officer, which, and by interestingly, on the link that I just pinned to the top of the room, she has her pronouns in her next to her name as a speaker on the event. So it says Melanie Parker, she, her. Like her pronouns are part of her title or her name in as a speaker on the speaker listing. Which I'm an event organizer. I make pages like this all the time, constantly. I've never seen pronouns.
Tyler,
Yes,
this is a generational shift,
I understand
and
that.
you're gonna see more and more of it.
I get that. Yeah, I would even say it started in
No,
Thailand.
Francine, it's not a generational shift; it's a political shift. And by the way, because
No,
there are young conservatives, and it can shift back too.
well, I
Well,
don't
that's a
know.
fair point,
I
because
think it.
that's a fair point that Ken's making, which is it's a generational shift on one side of the aisle, which makes it a political
Exactly.
issue. Because to be a generational shift, it would need to really be happening on both sides of the aisle. That's a fairly astute observation. Because punk rock, arguably, hippies, arguably, were kind of on both sides of the aisle. Obviously, a little more, these angsty youth generally tend to be more on the left side of the aisle, but not exclusively. And in this case, it almost certainly is exclusively. Interesting. Anyway, I didn't realize Google had a chief diversity officer, and I found it very interesting that she's listed as the third most important speaker in the Google Cloud event, which adds, and the reason I mention all this is it adds some anecdotal credence to the embedded seed from last week's article about, is Google getting a little woke to the degree that it could influence their algorithms, which they were in good company. Twitter, obviously, we know this is going on at Twitter, and that's why, in large part, Elon's stated reason for wanting to acquire it to save it from itself.
You know
And
what, Tyler? I think a lot of those roles still are all hat, no cattle.
the old Texas saying, yes, um, pure posturing. Well, it is until they start changing the algorithm.
Hey,
Because
Tyler, why Teddy's still here, by the way, and it is really big news. I don't know when you'd be getting to it, and it relates to TikTok, by the way. I mean, if you actually understand what's going on,
yep,
you know, Snap's earnings got reported yesterday,
yes,
and the stock got crushed even lower than it already is, and a lot of people are saying in part it's due to the fact that advertising is shifted not only from Snap but from other platforms to TikTok, and so I just wondered because Teddy's from a different generation than a lot of us. If Teddy, can you comment all on your thoughts on Snap? Do you have any thoughts on Snap?
or on TikTok advertising.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's two different conversations. I mean, there's six major platforms that all short videos are on. There's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, and Pinterest. Snapchat was big in 2020. Creators were making 5 to 6 figures every month. Those who succeeded in that creator fund in 2020, and they fell off the map and focused on AR filters for creators to use, Snap Camera for desktop and Mac. Advertising, uh, TikTok is introducing Pulse. I think you guys know that. It's a 50-50 split between creators who have 100,000 followers or more, and they're going to start running ads alongside short form videos. YouTube's doing it as well in January of 2023, in about 2 months or so, where they're going to give creators 45% of the ads from, I mean, the profits from the ads that they run. So, TikTok ads, it's I'll just say that much. When it comes to ads, because I have not paid for ads. I've only done organic marketing with my influencers, and we create content for companies. So yeah.
Teddy, do you think this business of the pronouns is just on the left?
I'm not sure. I just know people get very sensitive when they don't agree with uh, addressing pronouns. I'm not sure why. Um, but yeah, in Taiwan, we don't have that. We just call everyone like ta 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 ta. So we only have one word for people. I
Yeah,
So
find
that,
it.
actually,
Latin
there's
used to have
two.
male spoon
There
and
is
female
two.
spoon.
no,
I'm
but
just
Yeah,
Teddy
the
brings up a great
female
point.
one and the male one. Oh, and an
Teddy,
animal one. There's three ta.
Teddy brings up
Yes.
Teddy brings up a very good point, which is generational movements are to some extent international, and the pronouns thing isn't U.S. exclusive. It's happening in Britain, Australia, and a handful of other places, but it's uh, a bit. It seems a bit limited to very Western generations at the moment, and hasn't quite gone as um, pan, pan international in the way that other kind of global generational movements tend to do, just generally. But time will tell.
Y'all know pronouns are a very, like, since the English language in most cultures, I'll take like a tribe outside or a group of people outside of Oaxaca City. They have like she, he, her, him, and they have another one called muxes. And muxes is the gender where whatever you want to be, you can be. So the business of pronouns and not accepting one, it's just society and however it was developed that is not socially mature enough to accept people for whoever they want to be, and they're confined to those pronouns. But most other groups or other they do not have these feminine and masculine words when it comes to certain things. Like some places, there's no king and queen. There's like a general word for ruler or leader, leader of whatever. So I these conversations drive me crazy when pronouns are solely based on the English concept of it most of the time.
I think it's from the ancient, like Latin or even older languages. It's just not only by English, even in French, right? Germany.
Ty,
Yeah. So
Ty, Tyler, but I sorry,
Exactly,
I don't
Vivi.
know. I don't really know. But why do they make such a big deal out of these pronouns things in the West?
Because people
after
are
Corona, I think.
closed-minded. Because people are closed minded when it comes to other people's choices because they've been indoctrinated to believe that only couples can be a man and a woman, or only, they're confined to these gender roles, and it's so tightly knitted to the fabric of who they are, who they think they are, who they think they're supposed to be. They can't seem to grow beyond that.
But
Well,
they
To my
and
always
and
ask
understanding,
I might
for
disagree on that too.
gender equality, right? But so why
Mm-hmm.
do they
yeah,
want to
sure, sure. I
point
think
out the
there are
difference?
too much suppression of this, like in gender or in your self recognition in the history. So right now we're at a moment that you can try to be whatever you want, whoever you want. So this has become, I think, a lot of activities in the U.S. Uh, result from this, just like the she, like you said,
But
pronoun.
BB, this doesn't happen in your culture, right?
Oh, we. I think, yeah, since you're leaving Asia, you know this is not uh make as like a extravaganza thing. So
I mean, it's
people
not a
do
big
care,
deal.
but
Yeah.
we did it with milder way. So if people want to be, because just like Teddy said, we have ta, but we have ta for a man, ta for uh, female, and ta for the animals. But basically, we can use just one same ta. That means he, just one set character for every gender. That's okay.
You, it just
Yeah,
mean you, right?
and you, yeah, just me, that is you,
Yeah.
and this trouble me all the time, but because you can mean you or you guys, that means a single and
No,
plural.
I just want to
Yeah,
know why. I mean, well, I think the Western always talk about gender. I mean, I'm from Singapore, so I don't really have such a problem. But they always talk about gender equality, right? They want everyone to
in
accept
Asia
them
it's
for who
also
they are.
discussed, right? But I
Yeah,
mean,
I know, but why is it such a big deal about this pronounce? I really do not understand. Why do they want to be differentiated? I mean, is there any benefit
It's
for that? I'm just trying
it's
to
a different
understand.
angle to see it. Yeah.
No, BB, I think let them answer because you are
Okay.
from Asia.
So
Yeah.
so Cheryl, it's just
I like
oh,
Cheryl's
go ahead,
question.
Tyler.
Here, I have a theory that I didn't have a good answer to Cheryl's question. It took me a minute to think. Perhaps it's because one of many reasons is in the same way that this diversity officer for Google on the Google event page, which is still pinned to the top of the room, if you click it, you'll see she's listed as a speaker. Next to her first and last name are her pronouns. In doing that, she participates in a bit of a social effort on behalf of people who share her value, to want to promote that, drive that awareness. And so it's maybe personally for her, it's more about driving awareness around this issue. And so that's why it's reinstated at every opportunity to help drive awareness about something. It isn't that the individual will personally be upset about how you refer to them. It's not a personal ego issue. Like they're going to feel personally upset that somebody didn't use the right pronouns for them. It's that they want every opportunity to be an opportunity to promote this, and it can be used in almost every instance. With every person that you meet. People used to make jokes about how vegans take advantage of every opportunity to promote veganism, or CrossFitters used to take advantage of every opportunity to introduce CrossFit into every conversation that they possibly can. Well, in this case, you really can do it into every interaction that you have with every person and on every website that you visit. And there are even now I believe it was Airbnb that allowed me to, it was something like Airbnb if it wasn't a popular large scale web app, that asked me when I last time I checked my user profile settings, where you can enter your name and your email, or whatever, change your password. It allowed me to put in my pronouns. So at that point, that company, that startup, if it's Airbnb, and I think it is, has now got to the point where even its platform is an opportunity to promote this effort to all of its users. and that's to back to Francine's point, is how you make uh, a generational change happen. But you're one half the right side of the aisle is actually perceiving this as antagonistic and is
No, they're not. I
are
don't
they not?
understand why you say that, Tyler.
That's
Because
how I
I live.
perceive it.
Oh, well, hi. I live in Arizona. Arizona is a state full of conservatives. And yes, I would say that the Christian conservatives, there's a lot of division among the conservatives in Arizona. The Christian conservatives are people who believe that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, but the younger people and the the people who've kind of left the Christian church because they are younger, and younger people often explore agnosticism or whatever they they explore, but they they go along with the pronoun thing. I mean, it's
So, Dr.
it's
Francine,
more a question of what sect of the conservatives you belong to. If you belong to a religious sect, you're with the Bible.
Yeah,
Francine, are you actually
say
suggesting that you believe that John McCain and Barry Goldwater like would be supportive of this? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, no, because they lived in a different era.
It's a
Would they
different
be
generation, right?
supportive of it?
Yeah.
So, Dr. Francine, what percentage of conservative Republican, allow this kind of gender neutral pronouns?
I don't know, but when you talk to moms, who have kids in like high school or whatever, they're all up into pronouns.
this can I can I get in 1 minute here about this is in human history what we have been wrestling or what we are wrestling with is is as old as human history, where you have the human right to identify with who they are. And somebody was talking about Cheryl. I think you were talking about how historically there was in Latin there was the feminine and the masculine, and that was part of the language. And you had the church came to control. But in the Roman days, there's a bunch of in Greek. Holy cow! We know that there's gay people since the very first humans. And so, just to use that, I'm trying to provide a few different ways to look at this. We are just now with the civil rights movement, what color you are, what your sexual, however you identify yourself as an immigrant. I went through my own kind of identity. Who am I, right? And it's just part of maturing. And what we're trying to cultivate is a cultural change to allow dignity to people to allow them to define who they are and to give them some level of respect as a fellow human to do that. So, is there a conservative movement, or not even movement? It's been around forever. The Bible and the interpretations of it have, they have a clear dogma that they feel threatened by this, and it's a much more nuanced conversation. It is something we need to talk about, but I think we should just talk about it more than than really criticize. And I'm not saying anybody here is criticizing anybody's use of the pronouns, but it's just something that we need to cultivate more as a conversation, to cultivate a culture that is more open to allow people to call themselves what they care to.
Exactly. Let people be here. I put the link inside the chat about the MOOCs and stuff, and you can talk. It talks about the history and why it was why it's been
Th-
around. But
This
I
is
will.
Richard. This is Richard. I'd like to reduce this conversation to the ridiculous. Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, as young men, were arrested for sodomy in Florence. Have you heard of those two names? Do they ring a bell? That's from that's from 4 centuries ago. And there are institutions in the United States right now. I need I mention the Mormon Church, who is persecuting people. They will throw you out of their institution, and even in some cases out of your family if you are gay. So, yeah, the conversation continues. Thank you. I'll rest my case.
The Mormon church has changed a lot of its stances. The fundamentalist Mormons probably would throw you out, but the again, lots of Mormons in Arizona. The regular Mormon business community that I know,
You don't pick your
um,
family or your parents, Dr. Francine. What
Yeah.
about the people who are in that? There's people in Iran that maybe don't want to believe in some of these beliefs that are inherited in the culture that they were born to. So the whataboutism is too reductive here. I think
Yep.
Richard had a point, and we should stand up for the people that are not uh, sheltered in their belief system where they started.
And we should get back to actual tech news. Tyler.
Well,
Yeah.
there is it is a tech thing too, because I think Tyler brought up another thing. I would, because Tyler, you said the software was doing it. If you look at LinkedIn, it is doing the
Oh, it
same
was
thing.
LinkedIn is doing it. That's right.
And when it did it, I said, shit, I'll just call myself a damn alien. So if you look at me, I'm a fucking alien, okay? So but this is, you look, Americans,
why
we like
can't
to
you just
label.
call yourself he, him, like I
Okay,
call
but
myself
I'm an
she,
alien
her?
but
because it's my choice. I'm an
Tyler,
alien.
but
But
internationally, when you fill in forms, right, there's always this Miss, Mister, Mrs., Madam, or
exactly.
whatever. So why
Yeah.
don't you just do that officially? I mean,
Well,
everybody
I was
feels
just
that,
joking there, but I do put alien. But my point is, in the U.S., we have a history of labels. It's just the way it is, and we go through these shifts. Take a black person. We went from the derogatory to the colored to the Afro American to African American. I have no fucking idea what we're going to be called next. Latinx, Hispanic, you name it. So we just go through these waves of different labels. It's just the way we go to evolve, and some would say go backwards. The other thing is slamming the Christians. Just so you know, there's 200 million Christians in the U.S. out of the 300 plus million that we have. So I'm not saying all of them care about this he, she, or not, but that's a sizable number, and that's a big ass voting block. So just keep that top of mind.
Yeah, yeah. I saw a video of Muslim gathering that was raising their voice about this issue as well recently. That video went a bit viral. I forget where they're in Florida, strangely, and they were standing up to the school board or whatever. And
That is
but
insane, Tyler, because Muslim, historically have this population of people who don't identify with any gender. They are gender neutral, and they have been a very productive part of the society and accepted really well for like centuries. So the fact that they're doing something here in the United States against it is just mind-boggling.
Well,
so
that's a
the,
new one to me. I know that might be in history, but if you look at modern history, the last couple hundred years, sadly, that has not been the case because we know what they have been targeting and what they have been doing.
And Robert, church membership has been dropping, precipitously for a generation. So I would put a beer bet on there's nowhere near 200 million. There's a very vocal voting bloc of much smaller than that that has an outsized media footprint.
But you know what?
And
To
let
your
me
good
finish. Let me
point.
finish. Let me finish. They've also, as a Catholic, I am I'm embarrassed and get humiliated when I think about the Catholics on the Supreme Court and what they're doing. And so, one of the reasons why the membership is falling precipitously is because of the hateful interpretation, or another way to look at it is the hateful projection of certain ways that certain Christian sects. I'll call it sects sects project their moral code and demand that. And it's not just Christian. This is religion. America's greatest when we have religious pluralism and when we put religion, quite frankly, in a box in our society that allows us to express our religious belief, but together we have a connection that we can use to maintain peace and cultivate opportunities and things like that. There is absolutely, excuse me, and it has been a very thoughtful strategy by conservatives to take power. I mean, this is all obvious, right? So that's why we're having an enriched conversation about these social aspects in our politics, not even just the financial. It's the social parts of our laws and things like that.
This is Richard. I'd like to make a comment. Let's take a historical perspective of Islam, because somebody here is Islamic. There was a period, and correct me if I'm wrong, when some leader in the Islamic religion back 100, I guess, 1,000 years ago, started saying that mathematics are the acts of Satan, and made it stick somehow, so that science got denigrated in the Islamic culture. Obviously, science elevated in Western Europe and the United States because of the Enlightenment, and a switch took place. Most of the science, the zero, was developed, and the math was developed in the Middle East, but it got suppressed by a religious fanaticism. And the same thing could happen in the United States with this Republican obsession with, enforcing historic biblical or memes that prevent us from progressing. I rest my case. Thank you.
Yeah, but
Oh,
the
oh, just
opposite
to
is
add to
true
that
too.
though, but the
The
Catholics
quick
were
Either
persecuting
side doing extreme
science before then,
can have
though.
very denigrating. That you somebody would say exactly the same as the right side is anticipates and fears that the left's progressivism will lead to a similar sort of degradation. You were saying,
Al, you're
No,
saying?
Al,
yeah,
you were
I
saying,
would say. Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm in my back room. Must have been a delay. No, I had said that we can't. I mean, yes, we're doing the finger pointing thing, but also too, the Catholic Church during a long period of time of the ages were persecuting astronomers, scientists, and stuff like that. Anybody that spoke against the church and considered it witchcraft, anything. So you can't like say it's just Islam too. It's anything that falls under Abrahamic religion has been somewhat problematic. Actually, anything humans touch somehow become problematic throughout history, unfortunately.
If you roll the clock forward far enough and imagine like a Star Trek-like society, I can't imagine in 1,000 years there'll be many people holding dogmatic religious beliefs. So
Yes.
I think the
Thank you,
quicker that
Ben.
we move towards that, the better, to be honest.
High
My
five,
I
Ben. I'm
opinion.
a Trekkie, Ben, so thank you.
My opinion is, this is Richard. I have a degree in religion, so I have reason to be able to speak about it. My opinion is that when AI comes along and starts talking with us and engaging us, that will become a new religion for the non-religious. At least something to talk to about what's going on. That's my opinion. The greatest religion is yet to be born, but what do I know?
But Richard, how are we guaranteed that AI will fit the values that we hope?
Well, we have to assume that AI. What I mean, I'm hoping. I'm a contributor, trying to be a contributor to a rational and civil development of AI. I believe that AI is already here in some forms. That I believe that Siri and Cortana are incipient, old-fashioned AI. They're kind of clumsy and they're kind of stupid, but the day will come when AI, we're already using it. It's it's in our devices. It's in building our cars. It's building our civilization. If you read Michio Kaku's book about the future of humanity, he says that we're going to create self-replicating robots that will build out the solar system for us to occupy, and we will become the overlords, or at least primarily the occupants of this solar system as we prepare to go to the stars and other Earth-like planets that Bruno was killed for in the 14th century for calling to our attention by the
Yeah, but
Catholic
what?
Church.
But Richard, what if people? What if I'm a part of the Sith and the Darth Vader side that wants to make AI? Isn't there dark and light on both
There's
sides of it?
dark forces, but I believe we have this room, which didn't exist 40 months ago, and all of us are not going to want that for our families, our children. We're going to watch it like a hawk. I don't want it. I don't want the Sith to take over. I don't want some Borg to take over, which is going to destroy life and my grandmother's chocolate chip cookies. No, none of us do, and I believe we will. All of us together here, we're in this room didn't exist 40 months ago, and we're going to watch it like a hawk. That our lives are not destroyed, that our heritages are not destroyed, that our loves are not destroyed. That we will do, in my opinion.
The Sith is manifest not only in evil, with people of power having evil, or not even with power, just evil, but also the Sith is our relationship with nature. The Sith that's going to take us out potentially, if you look at any kind of forecast, is just this climate change thing. It's our lack of harmony with nature. So it's in ourselves and how we are our current manifest how we live and work. Everybody, what the fuck did we learn about COVID? Right? In terms of, not driving to work, trying to, accommodate nature. Not a motherfucking thing. I'm sorry.
Well,
All these CEOs, get back to work, get your ass back in your seat at work. There was an opportunity there for humanity to take a big breath of fresh air and to see some animals running around their backyard, or a little bit more than usual. But we haven't learned shit. So
uh,
these. Sorry, I'll kind
yeah,
of pass the
the
religion
corporate demon.
to wrap it
I
back to
agree with you.
religion as a salvation, as a means to actually provide good is going to be more and more of an issue because you have the Pope saying one thing, but then you have other forces in the Christian space that are just they just fight. They fight and fight and fight. They rationalize all these other fossil fuel things.
I think that I like Peter Diamandis' view and Michio Kaku's view. Peter Diamandis says that the tools are emerging that that we will. I am not negative on AI. It isn't just another tool. There were people in the 19th century who said, no, humans were never meant to go as fast. We have horses for a reason. Horses to get us around, to drag, to take the carriages. We don't want these high tech technologies, these cars and whatnot. We don't want these fancy roads. The truth is, most folks want that to have happened, and it did turn out to be a little bit better. And that AI and all these technologies are something similar. They're going to create realities. Yes, we're spoiled where we have these new phones that could do stuff that we never dreamed of when I was a kid. uh Connections, and I'm not negative. I'm neutral. I think we should be intentional about the development of these technologies, and very careful as to how they evolve. Having said that, they're going to happen. They're sort of fulfilling themselves by themselves as we stand on this stage talking to each other. There may be some new developments in the last a few hours in biotechnology that are going to change the course of medical history. The cure for cancer was discovered in Botswana or somewhere. I'm just throwing it out there. Thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so moving back into the tech headlines here. Apple sues a company called Masimo, saying that the medical tech company carefully studied Apple's intellectual property during its patent infringement suit against Apple in order to make its W1 watch. Amazon quietly shuts Fabric.com, an online retailer of fabrics, trims, and other supplies, before being acquired by Amazon in 2008. Um, Microsoft publishes a Windows subsystem for Android roadmap, including Android 13. Axios says they have sources that Instacart has decided to push its highly anticipated IPO till next year. Telegram will launch auctions for its usernames on a blockchain. That's kind of interesting. Be Real, the app that the kids are using, closed a $60 million Series B, valuing it at $600 million. OpenAI is in talks to raise more funding from Microsoft after it raised a previous round at a $20 billion valuation from Sequoia, Tiger Global, and Andreessen Horowitz. Snapchat had its Q3 revenues, as Ken said, and the stock is down 25%, more than it was already down. It's running out of room to go down at this point. Meta's oversight board says that as of October, it can make binding decisions to apply a warning screen when leaving up or restoring qualifying content.
Like a cigarette warning? Like, hey, this,
Exactly.
that's interesting.
Meta adds Reels to Facebook groups and says that most Facebook users are members of at least 15 active groups and that there are more than 100 million group joins every day. Google now lets users disable targeted ads without breaking useful features by having them turn off settings like web and app activity in the YouTube history. Microsoft confirms some customer data was exposed due to server misconfigurations. The UK's Ofcom publishes a report on its first year regulating video sharing sites, detailing how TikTok, Twitch, OnlyFans, and others tackle content challenges. Forbes says they have sources that senior Stripe executives asked managers to restart giving lower ratings on performance reviews to 10 to 15% of staff to prune the company's workforce. Texas's Attorney General sues Google for allegedly using Photos, Google Assistant, and Google Nest features to collect facial and voice recognition data without seeking users' full consent. Inside of Google Photos, Google Assistant, and Google Nest, your voice and face data without your consent. DeFi proponents criticize Sam Bankman-Fried for a regulatory proposal suggesting websites facilitating trading on decentralized exchanges should be regulated, and that indeed the whole truly decentralized world, Sam clearly has jumped in bed with the government and the whole centralized side of things, as he has to do because he's got big investors who have to comply with government regulations and yada yada yada, and he's willing to cause headaches for the truly decentralized camps out there. Same as Coinbase, you could argue. Um, and there we go. Those are the big boring headlines for today. And now we go to the tweets. Did anybody have a tweet since we met last time?
There was one kind of software, like a Dolly 2 type software that I came across called Echo. I think it's called Echo Hive Live, and it does kind of like a Dolly 2 painting, but it'll auto complete the sentence to some extent and add that to the prompt as well. So it's interesting how these tools are kind of spinning up. So I just wanted to share that with folks if anyone wants to take a look.
Okay. Saudamini found one on BBC. Somebody named Kate Isaacs describes the horror of seeing her face digitally edited. She basically saw herself in a porn video that she never participated in filming. And it was because her face was used in this deep fake porn video. They put my face on a porn video. Something I think we will all have to get used to because the technology is going to be incredibly way too easy to do this to everybody.
Well, this already happened to Tom Cruise, right? He's been deepfaked over the Christian Bale scene in American Psycho in the bedroom, so that's already happened to him, and that looks pretty good. And that was, I think, quite a while ago already.
Yeah, it happened with me and John Holmes too.
I'm seeing, I'm imagining this is precisely the kind of article that great grandchildren, 100 years from now, will look back at that article and laugh themselves silly. That of course you're being deep faked onto a porn video. Everyone, that happens to everybody all the time. In 100 years from now, is what I'm imagining. BB
The
Saudamini found this one from the BBC: the flying car that could turn into an airplane. An American startup reveals a novel design, but what is the future of flying cars? So I just retweeted that one. An OnlyFans model murdered partner in a breakup. Abigail White, 24, stabbed Bradley Lewis, 22, after he told her that he wanted to break up with her. I guess this. What's weird about this? This is a BBC article about a murder about a breakup. The only thing that makes this remotely newsworthy is that she is an OnlyFans model. So why is the BBC reporting this? If she was a Facebook user, would they be reporting this?
I would look and see if the reporter watched her OnlyFans page.
The headline is OnlyFans model murdered partner in breakup. Okay. What about an Instagram model? What about a Twitter influencer?
Just a few billion of those people.
Yeah, but the problem is the OnlyFans model also have their Instagram page, which leads to their OnlyFans page.
But why? How is this
That's
any different than
psychology.
any teen? I mean, any two 24-year-olds. Hold on, let's read the article and try and figure this out because it seems weird that the BBC is taking an issue with the fact that this
Tyler, this
lady.
under the catalog of England regions Bristol, so maybe it's more like a regional news.
Okay, hold on. Well, it says UK,
So,
England.
of
It,
socialized news reporting.
Yeah, just let him read it.
it says an
Well,
OnlyFans model has been found guilty of murdering her ex-boyfriend, whom she stabbed in the heart with a kitchen knife. Jesus Christ.
Oh, vicious.
Abigail White, near Bristol, after he ended their relationship earlier in the day. A jury at the Bristol Crown Court found her guilty after 12 hours of deliberations following a 2-week trial. Now, how many
That
times was
sounds like a version of Clue.
with a kitchen knife in the study?
Yes, in the bread in the
guilty.
kitchen with the bread.
What
The,
about what
Sorry,
about?
Dr.
I want to know
Francine, I muted you by mistake. Sorry,
how
Tyler,
many
Tyler.
she just didn't want to be forced to write an article on trust. That's what it really comes down to.
how many times was the word OnlyFans mentioned in this trial? Is what I want to know. And if it was zero, which I assume it is, why is the BBC using that as the headline? Oh,
To
that
help
OnlyFans.
legal fees.
So she initially told police she had not stabbed him. She made 50,000 euro, British pounds or dollars at this point. They're one for one in 1 year working on the online streaming platform OnlyFans. Well, 50K, not so shabby, I guess. Where users can buy and sell content, and alleged Mr. Lewis had been controlling with the money she made. She denied murder, but had admitted Mr. Lewis's manslaughter by reason of diminished responsibility, aka it was an accident. The jury heard their relationship was strained and that Mr. Lewis had left the family home and was staying with his mother at the time. Yeah, well, they're both kids still, Jesus. In the days before she killed him, the court heard she had stabbed him in the arm, and on another occasion, he rang a friend and said, "Help me, Sophie, she's trying to kill me. She's trying to stab me. She keeps beating me up. She's hurting me." A post-mortem examination found that he had suffered a single fatal wound, at least 6 centimeters deep to the chest, that entered his heart on the day of the attack. He told her in a park that he no longer wanted to be with her. They, later, they later met friends in a pub where she started to fight with some of the other drinkers. The court heard she had drunk a bottle of wine, as well as several other drinks, and had taken a small amount of cocaine by this point. They
Where
left
did
the
he
pub
get
at 12
all
o'clock.
the details?
So
Interesting.
what the hell does this have to do with OnlyFans? I'll be the first to say, if he was jealous that she was an OnlyFans and he discovered she's on OnlyFans and he's on OnlyFans and he discovers that she's on there, I mean that's kind of would be a hilarious scenario that this guy's a user of OnlyFans and finds his own girlfriend on OnlyFans and he gets jealous and kills her. Okay, that would be a perfectly legitimate reason to include OnlyFans in the title of this murder of this couple. But OnlyFans, according to this article, played no role in their issues of their relationship other than the money they were having. He was being controlling of money. Well, he probably would have been controlling of the money if she made it at Starbucks. And then would we say a Starbucks barista murders, her partner?
Well, I
It's
think the mega story that's been around for a couple decades is beware of who you meet online. So that your point is spot on. We don't there's not a people if something like this were to happen on Match.com, we don't see those stories.
But I imagine there's more girls on OnlyFans than are working at Starbucks. So, but I never read articles titled "Starbucks barista murders so and so."
Maybe the baristas are on OnlyFans.
yeah. I guess that's just free
Maybe
marketing
she
for
has an NDA
OnlyFans,
with
right?
Starbucks.
No,
I'm
but
Maybe
not.
why
it's
is the
I'll
bad
leave it.
news, but
BBC?
still free
Why
marketing.
why is the BBC taking issue with the fact that she's on OnlyFans?
Is the journalist like dejected by that artist on the OnlyFans? I'm just wondering how did he or she get all those details? I'm just wondering.
Well, maybe
Well, the
this
court did.
highlights kind of the human trafficking feel, or some people have that impression about these kinds of sites where, hey, is this human trafficking? What was the nature of the disagreement? Is this service appropriate? I think that's the kind of questions in a place like the UK. That's the kind of questions that'll bring up. There'll be some inquiry. So I see that happening next.
The UK is going to come out with some new privacy law on OnlyFans. I mean, this way they can like send you fines. I mean, they're really good at sending fines.
Yeah, you got
GDP.
to have that TV license, right?
And Tom, I'll pin your profile on OnlyFans once you're ready.
Okay, I'll create my OnlyFans page. Hold on.
Okay. Anyway,
Feet photos all
Let's be realistic. I'm going to use the AI image of my face on John Holmes if I do that.
Make it an NFT, and we got a deal.
Adobe's upcoming AI experiments include a powerful drag and drop composition tool. The company showed off a bunch of features under development in the sneak peek event. BB, do you
Yeah, I
can
think Eric just brought up another AI, but I think even Adobe provides the automation and the plus AI features. I think this is more influential to the this graphic editor creators world, and this is really handy because you only need very simple photos and you drag like maybe Tyler, I have a photo of you. I want to put you uh, on the top of the highest mountain, something like that, or on the top of the White House, anything. And you just just take the background photo, then you put the object, then it will adjust the lighting, the color, and the size. And of course, you can decide it if you don't want to use it, just turn it off. But I mean, under Adobe, they are trying to there's a speed up there. development using AI, and I think more and more people and where understand how to use it, how to um, make the most of it. Because right now, if you are still with the image, with impression, how you can use styling, but it always like a lottery because you have no control of the outcome. You like pick up the best of it, but not the way you want it. So Adobe, if you know how to use it, then the threshold is even lower now. So I think the point is, if you want to try to be a creator on graphics and even further to a video, now you just try to understand how to take a photo and drag and put that.
That's a great point, actually, democratizing that tool, because all the concern people had about artists not being able to have jobs. Well, why don't you put it into one of the most widely used platforms by artists and creators, which would be the Adobe Suite?
They give an example that for like if you try to make an image of yourself in front of the Eiffel Tower and you take yourself out of one photo and drop it into a photo of the Eiffel Tower, it can now use AI to match your shadows with the lighting in the original photo of the Eiffel Tower, which is pretty clever, actually.
Then all you do is need an EXIF editor, and then you can change the EXIF data and make it look realistic.
Yeah, but originally you have to know how to 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 tweak all those index. Right now you just need to put two photos together. So that's a totally different perception of editing.
Yeah,
The
that was one of the tools that was made early on. I think when all this fake news and deepfake stuff coming started coming out, one of the things was, can we look at a photo and determine whether it's fake or plausibly of some part of the Earth? And I think that was a DoD project. So now to see that kind of just become, hey, now it's a commercialized algorithm that can make shadows for you. That's pretty cool.
I
well, the
think
scary
it was
part
2
would
years
be
ago. It was the not just the DoD. It was in the Tech News. Not Tech News. I forgot the name of that website. But they were talking about. It first came out like, oh, they're making deep fakes, and then that I don't know. I think it was at may have been MIT. Perhaps they were doing deep fakes, and that was a discussion in here. But then at the same token, somebody came back around after that. The deep fake technology came out was that there was a way. With whatever tool they made to identify if something is a deep fake when it comes to creating the digital images or even voice.
well, the scarier part will be is if you can literally say, okay, here's the picture of me, the Eiffel Tower. Pick the date and time. It pulls up the weather information, so it then changes the tones based on what the weather would be. Then it becomes a lot more realistic.
Yeah.
They already do that. They already do that.
Okay. Google's drone delivery company called Wing is expanding to Ireland for the next expansion of its drone delivery services. Texas sues Google, claiming its search engine illegally captures biometric data. We talked about that. Foxconn says production normal at iPhone plant in China. And said on Friday, production at its largest iPhone factory remains normal. WhatsApp is rolling out avatar feature for profile photos. They're testing avatar features for Android beta users. It allows users to create a custom avatar for their profile photo. Meta develops AI translation system for a primary spoken language. We covered that one yesterday. TikTok says never been used to target U.S. individuals, responding to the article we shared earlier today that accused. They said that sources at TikTok it was targeting geodata on specific U.S. users who are not employees of TikTok. TikTok said it has never been used to target any members of the U.S. government, activists, public figures, or journalists. Airlines AI knows how much you're willing to pay for flights before you book them.
Hold
Armed
on,
with
is that
knowledge.
target things where, hey, we're collecting all this stuff anyways? We're not targeting you. We just happen to have you already in the database.
Airlines know how much you're willing to pay before you book your ticket. Armed with mountains of data, AI is emerging as an important tool for airlines. Well, I got news for you. It's not just for airlines, it's for hotels too. And I recently turned it on my hotel, and holy shit, are we making a lot more money now? Like 4x.
But Tyler, I've this is I mean, did this AI algorithm provide the same prices for everybody, or they were differentiated pricing?
It's with the
Can you
same
please?
capacity, 4x with the same capacity.
I didn't understand the first question. Let's
I
just start
mean,
by.
like Uber, they sometimes charge different prices for different person. So I mean,
I don't think Uber's pricing is based on the person. It's based on the supply and the demand in the real time.
yeah, yeah, but the result is uh, it's like I saw a price and my friend saw another price. That's different. So for the
Oh,
same
it
trip,
depends on frequency, BB. I get different prices all the time,
Uh,
depending on like how often
yeah.
you use it,
So
and
I mean,
also your rating if you have a good rating.
yeah. So from customers' perspective, if I know we like the same trip have different prices and the amount of the difference is very huge, that might not be a good thing in long term because everyone can write a review online. Um, I mean,
Where,
if, yeah, the comparison will make people feel unfair.
Tyler, just now you mentioned 4 times is it with the same
Cheryl,
utilization rate?
let me try to understand BB's question. Can you try
Okay.
again? BB, what's the question?
I mean, you said AI helps to know what price people are willing to pay.
Yes.
So, so like if I feel your resort deserve like a one night for 1,000 US dollar, but another guy feel just 500 for a night, and we both get the price we think it deserves. But in the end, we found it's like I paid double as the other guy. Then I feel unfair. Then I will complain online. So where this kind of scenario happen?
Complain where online?
Like if you have your advertisement on like all those bookings, Agoda or any other, or even just like what I forgot a site that you can put reviews of all the hotels you've ever been to. So
Well,
people,
this okay. Well, this is a rather unlikely scenario because you would have to book the exact same check-in day and the exact same checkout day and book them nearly identically at the same time,
Uh,
right?
I
To
think I
make an
understand her question. Like for example, BB and her
I know
friend just
I
sitting
do
next
too.
to her.
Cheryl, I don't I do too. I understand her
Yeah.
question. My answer is the price can change on an hourly basis. So for you to correctly uh, state that you were given different prices because of you individually, you would have to start by proving that you booked for the same check-in day, the same checkout day, and you booked both at the same time. But then if you did know that and you felt the price was too high, then you wouldn't book. So you would have to, in your scenario, have to do the wildly unlikely scenario that you both booked separately without knowing that you're both booking at the same time, but book at the same time for the same check-in day and the same checkout day, and met each other while on vacation and discussed how much you paid. Otherwise, there's a plausible deniability that, oh, you booked 3 hours apart for the same check-in day, same checkout day, which is also rather unlikely because
Uh,
of some event was announced nearby. Because one of the things that changes prices is there's the supply and demand of all the rooms in the town that day in real time.
so
It's
that's
just like
about
airline tickets. Airline
utilization, right?
and when you if you go to a website and enter the details of what you're interested in, and then leave and come back 2 hours later and try and buy it again. I got news for you. I fly a lot. I know goddamn well it's going to be more expensive if I leave and I come back 20 minutes later. And that's why I use, you know, if I'm using Chrome one day, when I go back the next time, I'll use Safari the second time so that they don't have that data.
Yeah, you should book in privacy mode. That's what I do most of the time. But Tyler, are you
And
not factoring in frequency? If you're a frequent attendee of that hotel or you're just a frequent person, because that factors in as
by
well.
the way, it factors in what country you're booking from. Airlines are notorious for doing this. It's far more expensive if you book a flight to depart when you're in the country it's departing from. It's much
Hmm.
cheaper if it thinks you're in a different country than the ticket departure location. So in your case, BB, the hotel could say, you complain, oh, I paid more than they did. And they say, yeah, well, you're from a different country. You booked on a few hours later. There could be lots of different variables in the algorithm that people can point to explain why you paid a different rate. And by the way, there's no evidence. You would have to have strong evidence of your claim. Most people reading that, oh, I booked for the same. It just if you. By the way, airlines have been doing this for a decade. I not once read a review of somebody complaining about this, and this has been going on for a decade, which leads me to conclude people aren't going to complain about this.
And it's actually what has helped airlines stay in business.
But Amazon already does this, right? Amazon does like dynamic pricing. So I posted a link here on the side, CNN article from 2019, and it showed that Amazon hired the most amount of PhD economists because those people were the best suited to modeling these kind of scenarios to maximize the revenue or minimize the losses, as it were. So even going on at a different time or keeping things in your cart or not in your cart, in your wish list, all these things factor in. So it's wild.
By the way, I got news for you. Booking.com tells you when you're looking at a hotel, only one room left. Airlines say only 3 seats left. Have you noticed this?
For that
Yeah, for the
Yes, I noticed it.
for that
I've got news
category
for you.
of ticket.
I've got news for you. As an hotel owner, Booking.com often says I have one room left when I have far more than one room left. So I know for a fact that Booking.com is full of shit when it does that. And it leads me to conclude that that the information that I'm seeing about airlines only having one seat left is full of shit too.
A question, Tyler, because you're using multiple platform, right? So you have
Yeah,
to set an allocation for the different platform in case there's
correct,
overbooking, no?
correct.
Yeah, so maybe under your allocation for booking.com, there's really only one room left.
No, they all have access to the same
Uh-huh.
database of
But
what's actually available.
yeah, but different people can book at the same time on booking.com and Airbnb, and then it may be overlap, right? The dates if they don't pay by their credit card first.
No, it's whoever clicks purchase first.
Yeah, yeah, purchase first, right? And pay first, right?
Sounds like a FOMO strategy, fear of missing out. Oh no, only one.
Yeah, of course they're doing that.
Tyler, I had a question. Do you have like some sort of platform that connects to all these other like how does it work as far as making your inventory Synchronize the available calendar. on Airbnb and Booking.com, etc.
Yeah, I mean, generally, anyone who is running any kind of normal hospitality, you're going to have an aggregator that allows you to do this. Yeah, you would be crazy not to do this.
But there was talk to, I think it was last year I showed that article where they were talking about blocking that because American Airlines was one of them that blocked, not Kayak, but there's one that's similar to Kayak. They were blocking them from the data because they didn't want to share the data anymore, and it would like, prevent them from, getting business. So there was a lawsuit against them about that. I have to find the article, but it's becoming trendy to block that type of data from other third party places.
You can get around that blocking with a specific distro by Oracle. So Oracle makes Linux distros for big data or social media, and they have all these aggregator systems built into there. So that's how Oracle still matters. That's one very effective tool there, and I
Number one,
think it's free to download. So
the category of app that I'm referring to is called a channel manager. So, so your Airbnb is a channel, Booking's a channel, Agoda's a channel, TripAdvisor's a channel, and there's there's no shortage of channels. And then you need a channel manager where you set the pricing, the photos, the text descriptions, and everything, and then it gets pushed out to all the different channels because you don't want to be manually updating each channel individually.
Yeah, because I was also wondering because obviously I've seen a lot of Twitter chatter and I use Airbnb a lot, but there's a lot more cleaning fees and surprise fees on Airbnb versus like maybe less of that if I book direct on their site, if that accommodation has their own site, or often if I'm a repeat guest, we and I've stayed there before as Airbnb, they'll tell me, hey, why don't you book direct? You'll save 22%, minus the commission for Airbnb. Does the channel manager help manage things like that? Like, for example, a tech news friends discount model and all that. And how do you do that, or you
No,
just kind of let the
there's no
software?
such thing. There's no such thing as a tech news discount. Don't go there.
The Robert, what do you say normally against the platform's rule?
No, hold on, baby.
Uh,
I'll. Uh, there are huge benefits for tech users who stay at Coconut Beach. It might not be a discounted rate, but there are absolutely major benefits. But to answer your question, of course, the channels generally charge commissions, which is generally in the neighborhood of about 20%, and like be it Booking.com and Airbnb. And when a customer books direct, of course, the venue is saving 20% commission, which they could offer to the guest, or they could split it. Give them a 10% discount for booking directly or whatever. Of course, there are strategies for driving direct bookings and using channels for purely for free marketing. The platforms or channels are sensitive to this, so if they feel like you're abusing their platforms for marketing purposes, like people go on Shark Tank who don't actually want to raise money and they just want the marketing. Yeah, they'll end up punishing you in their algorithms if they sense that you're doing that. And one of the obvious ways is somebody tries to book with you through Airbnb or Booking, and you convince them to cancel somehow, and they suspect that you're reconnecting with them to do a direct booking, then you'll end up they'll remove that free marketing by punishing you algorithmically for sure.
The way I look at it is that I've found great hosts on via Airbnb who have become friendly with them, and then I say, "Oh, I'd like to come back again," and they go, "Oh, that's great because I've got 5 other properties.
Right.
If you like this one, boy, would you like this one?" And they go, "And by the way, you can book it direct now since I know you." But of course, if you're a stranger, you may want to use the security of Airbnb because I have all the reviews. But once you get to know, regular guests,
Actually,
maybe
this
it's easier to just drive them through marketing or just direct,
right,
to
but
do that.
there's more to the equation than that, because if in fact you are a good guest, the the host will very likely be happy to give you a significant discount because they know you're not going to they don't have to calculate the risk that you're going to be a pain in the ass and take a lot of their time with a lot of nonsense questions and have headaches, and you lost the keys to the house and you crashed their motorbike and whatever else. If you seem like somebody that they would like to have back because you're a pleasure to have, as 30% of guests are, I will happily give you a significant discount because I know you're the second. By the way, the second time you come, it's a much easier transaction anyways, because you're not going to have a bunch of questions about how to get there and everything else. So it's and you know you don't need to know how to take out the trash, and a lot on and on and on. So yeah, normally repeat guests are, if they're well behaved, are uh, can certainly expect a significant direct booking discount. Anywho, the next tweet that I have, well, that was the one about airlines know what you're willing to pay. I have the article open. Um, they lean on historical information such as airline bookings and schedules to estimate current and future flight demand. So there you go. That's inventory. So they know the inventory in real time. They know when new flights are being added for that same day that you could optionally take otherwise, or they might know there's X amount of flights happening that day, and they know what percentage of each of them is full, and the inventory is running out. And then if inventory starts running out, other additional flights will be added, and they will know when those additional flights are added. You, as the passenger, as the customer, do not know any of that. And that's why the prices can change dramatically minute by minute because a new flight just came online for that airline that you're looking at anyway, or another airline between the same two cities around the same time, or a flight just got canceled. So there's 300 seats less available for that hour that you're planning to go from Chicago to New York. So I say that because this is why dynamic pricing is so incredibly important because almost guaranteed you're going to have an uplift in your revenues when using dynamic pricing and
The
these
pro
algorithms. Yeah,
Yeah, no, just this is a perfect example of a use case that does not recognize the needs for at least carbon offsetting the price of a flight. If you're, I mean, this is great in the old backward looking way of conducting business from optimizing profit. Marginal profit, just that awesome. However, flights are horrible in terms of pumping carbon into the atmosphere. So just that just is something I'd like to add to this is we need to start to be more. We need to start to look at how we address
this
the yeah.
check this out. They will even look in the case of hotels and airlines, but hotels is better in this example. They'll look at the weather forecast for that hotel, and if it's looks like it's going to rain, they can lower the price. If it looks like it's going to be very sunny, they can raise the price. As an example.
Yeah, so back in the day, Tyler, I interviewed for what became Climate Corp. So I think Friedberg interviewed me actually. It was a PM job, and they were trying to offer checkout in travel insurance for skiing, and this is like the first iteration of Climate Corp, where they're trying to take some weather data, satellite data, and try and predict and price insurance for
Hmm.
travel. So you could like if you're booking like a Miami trip for South Beach and it's gonna rain, they potentially they can price in the insurance at checkout. So that was really interesting. And then they said, no, actually, we're not doing that anymore. We're pivoting to farming. And I was like, what? Because obviously I love travel. And I said, no, I don't want the job anymore. That's very costly. Because it's old climate corp to Monsanto.
I,
Hmm.
I worked at a company called GigSky about 10 years ago. A buddy of mine has a really important patent in the eSIM space. He was one of the inaugural Apple SIM companies. But, business travel as a lifestyle for, all many of us have that type of a job. But I'm just, again, asserting and pleading to to just get the modern reconciliation with carbon footprint with that type of a lifestyle. We need more of it.
No, I hear you, David. Actually, I'm trying to figure out how because my job does require me to travel too much, and not only is it high on the carbon, but also it's I don't want to wake up in the morning and don't know where I am. Kind of if you travel too much, you can start to kind of be disconnected, and so I'm trying to travel less, but stay longer in places that I obviously enjoy and kind of and of course reduce carbon footprint as well, right? So I am actually. You'd be surprised. This sounds crazy, but I do send my LPs in the fund because we track ESG and environmental stuff, and I do use Google. What's that? It tracks your miles, right? How much you've used the car, how much you've used the bike, how much you've used the flying, and I do year on year report that to my investors. Tell them, hey, I traveled less this year by flight. I'm driving more, or I'm using my e-bike more. Yeah, and so I'm very conscious. And actually, the pandemic obviously helped me slow down a little bit, but I'm terrified of going back to my old self pre-pandemic of traveling ridiculously. But the
That's
goal
so
for me is is to spend less time, is travel less but stay longer in the places I really like.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I went to one of our reunions a couple weeks ago, and the John Doerr opened a sustainability school at Stanford, and it's great, it's awesome, and but he's got a new book, and I looks like you should have had a chapter in his book because he's one of the most renowned investors out of Sand Hill Road, in a generation and a half. And I just wish that there was a chapter of the book, and I'm sure that there's activities that they're doing out of the school to help cultivate more ESG, investment metrics in the VC community. But bless you, man, for doing your part, because to change the culture, we just need to start and start to show people how it can be done because it has to get done. That's awesome.
Okay. Next tweet that I have here is Facebook gets new features, the Reels for groups. We covered that. Amazon Echo Studio gains spatial audio and improved frequency range. I guess they have to stay competitive with Apple on that. And thousands on Spotify report outage as Taylor Swift album drops. And what else do we have here? The big news is that Elon Musk reportedly plans to cut 75% of Twitter. 11% of global Web3 talent resides in India. Okay.
Tyler, on the Elon Musk thing, and I've been on and off, so and I know I mentioned it very briefly, but you guys were doing other things, and I saw it reported this morning on CNBC, and I think they got it from the Guardian because the Guardian's carrying a headline, and it's the only place I see it, that the Biden administration has some security concerns about Elon's acquisition of Twitter, that there may be foreign investors that they're concerned about, and there's not a lot of detail. I don't believe on that article yet, and I didn't see that much. Yeah, and I think CNBC was just reporting what they had reported. But I pay attention to that because if that could be something that may slow down or slow down the closing if the government has a concern, and they haven't yet, at least according to any news reports, haven't referred to what's it called, the CFIUS review or something, when there's a foreign ownership or something concern. There's like there's a joint committee from various cabinet departments that look at something. So I don't think it's been referred to that yet, but the Guardian's reporting that there's some issue. So
Okay. So the last one I have for today is from Joe Williams. A robot is helping pick strawberries in California amid drought and labor shortages. According to the man behind the robots, they're programmed to think on their own with cameras that sense texture and color. There we go. We're replacing the illegal Mexican immigrants. I'm from San Diego, so this is something I'm intimately familiar with. Um, the strawberry fields in Southern California use, um, Mexican labor who are they intentionally try to focus on ones that are there illegally so that they can pay them less than minimum wage because they can't report it that they're because they're there illegally, so they're not able to inform the authorities that they're being paid way less than minimum wage. So, anyways, it's interesting that there's now robots to compete with them. So, if you don't think uh, that robots will be replacing McDonald's employees, you're sorely mistaken when they're replacing, illegal immigrants working for $3 an hour. So,
that's awesome.
on that happy note, we will
And
end it
Ben
for
has
today.
started his room.
Alrighty, well, we will meet again Monday. Have a